Welcome to the wonderful world of math. Now, before you say, I was told there would be no math in marketing. Well, the good news is there are all kinds of tools that can help us do all the math we need to do. The bad news is, while there are all these tools to help us do the math, none of them will help us understand what that number really means. Think of it this way. In a football game, there are amazing tools to help us measure every statistic of the player's effort, the downs, and the distance traveled by the ball as one team tries to battle another team to push it down the field. But if there is no shared understanding of what that progress means, well, then there will be trouble. If one team thinks 10 yards equals a successful first down, but the other team doesn't believe that, and there's no rule that states that, well, then there won't be any point in playing the game. This is a core challenge for marketing makers. Why? Well, because in marketing, there are no standard industry-wide rules for what defines success. The measurements or metrics that mean success to you may mean failure to me. In other words, we can all agree on how long a yard is in my marketing game. And in my football game, 10 yards equals a first down. But in another colleague's game, in a different industry, well, 10 yards might be a complete failure. This is the problem of marketing, and it always has been. Marketing cannot be mathematically proven with rules. So in a universe where marketing can never be mathematically proven, what good is math? Well, as it turns out, it's immensely valuable. It just needs one thing: a shared sense of what success looks like. In business, what's always true is that if we don't know why we're measuring something, we'll always settle for less of what we want. And if we don't all have a shared desire of what we want, we can be sure we'll never find it. Shared objectives without analytics are visions without a map. And analytics without objectives, well, that's like a map with nowhere to go. If we start with a shared objective and what a common understanding of meeting it looks like, well, then we can define it with math. That's when the numbers have a purpose and, more importantly, meaning. And that's when we all know we're winning a game that's actually fun to play. Welcome to episode 10 of Marketing Makers, the series for those that make marketing work. I'm Robert Rose, and I'm your host. Whether you're an independent consultant, a director at a Fortune 100, a newly appointed CMO, we are all marketing makers. And this month, we're talking about setting objectives and analytics. Let's get to the reason we need the tools to help with our math and really develop a meaningful framework for measuring our marketing challenges. Welcome to Marketing Makers. Plus 10 to 30, 35 plus, but, oh, hi, how are you? How are you doing? I'm just sitting here trying to do some math in my head with regarding some, chemicals I'm going to put into some pots. I mean, what could possibly go wrong, right? 1/3 plus 2/3 plus, I don't know how many 3/3. Maybe I'll just stop for a minute. I'm really bad at math. I mean, there's bad at math, and then there's me. So for some reason, my math teachers, well, they never liked the answer of, these equations are really up for interpretation. They didn't like that answer very much for me. And I have to say that as a marketer, well, I still hear that phrase a lot these days. So many businesses that I talk to say that their analytics tools, they're really just sort of interpretive dance, if you will, for how we're doing our marketing. As I've told my clients before, you show me your Google Analytics, and I'll tell you any story you'd like to hear. More time spent on the site, Well, of course, they're spending more time reading your content. It's not that they simply can't find what they're looking for and eventually give up. Or more visits? Of course, those visits are relevant and all of the things that you want with your sweet spot audience. It's not that thing that you just accidentally ranked for Google for that's completely irrelevant. Anyway, none of this is the fault of analytics tools. These are simply the tools that help us sort out all the measurement. They do the math. And you might think this is a modern problem since the beginning of digital and all of that, but this has been the way, quite frankly, it's been forever. If we go all the way back, modern marketing, it really started about 120 years ago. And you know what? It all started with a problem. You see, the problem was the question that might be a little familiar to you these days: what's the value of marketing? You know, in the early days of marketing, marketers were considered middlemen, the problem between the product or service maker and the buyer. The value between those two things was a simple question: how do I shorten the time between when my product is finished and the time it gets into the hand of a customer? Why? Because if my product is sitting on a shelf or in some other way unused, then it's worthless. It only has value when the consumer has purchased it. Thus, anyone or anything that lengthens that time is not adding value to my business. And so from the very beginning, marketing was always more valued when it was more efficient. Anything that was seen as friction to that process was seen as waste. Enter math. In fact, many of the early marketing textbooks argued the value of marketing could be calculated as a utility using math. The pros were that marketing middlemen could sell greater quantities of product and find new markets for it. The cons, of course, were that it added a cost, time, and money to the process. Calculating the balance between those two things became the passion of people who would judge the value of marketing and how much value it was creating for any business. And marketing is unique in this sense. I mean, think about it for a moment. Nobody says, well, let's look at the accountants and calculate whether or not balancing the books actually adds value to the business. No. Marketing has always been considered something that we don't really want to do if we don't have to. So let's do as little of it as we have to make our business valuable. Now, of course, in the pre-digital era, our marketing analytics and the math involved came in the package of what we called marketing research. In the 1930s, we began to see polling, for example, become a new feature of finding out how products and services were selling and how marketing campaigns were actually working out there. A guy by the name of George Gallup was a pioneer in this area in scientific polling techniques, and of course you know the poll that he's named after these days. And he would ultimately have one of the most famous polls named after him because he made his mark correctly predicting through his market research and analytics that Roosevelt would beat out Alfred Landon. And you go, who? Alfred Landon? Yes, the candidate for the presidency of the United States. In the 1940s, we got focus groups, which would provide both qualitative and quantitative data and analytics on customers and their intentions to purchase our products or react to our specific marketing campaigns. In the 1950s, we got what was called motivational research. This type of research introduced what we might call the brand research today, where pioneers took a much more psychological approach to consumer research and said that every product has a soul and is purchased not only for the purpose or the utility or the value it provides, but for what value it embodies in our psychology, the values that reflect our own image of ourselves. Then we got even more sophisticated in the 1960s when we got into predictive statistical techniques. This is when marketing really met math, and computers started to help us do what's called conjoint analysis, helping marketing managers make decisions about the potential for markets or products to sell based on statistical analysis. Then in the 1970s and 80s, we got advanced marketing segmentation and the measurement of planned behaviors. This was the beginning of trying to link actions taken by consumers and their changes in the attitudes and their intentions. Again, why? Efficiency. And then in the 1990s, we got what was known as digital analytics, and primarily with web analytics. We began to track and measure every single transaction that happens on digital media, hits, web page views, traffic, referral sites, all of it math in the name of an efficient process. You put all these things together over the last 100 years and now bring it into the latest, into 2021 and artificial intelligence, and you can start to see how all of this starts to fit together into why we put so much emphasis on this math. Though, transaction, measurement, qualitative data, semantic analysis, all on the content we consume, trying to determine our intention to purchase a product, it's possible now to bring all of these things into dashboards using technology that can infer so many different things, from relevance to engagement level to intent to purchase likelihood to loyalty, even levels of evangelism. Analytics have become the touchstone of a marketing strategy, a single source of algorithmic truth when it comes to setting the priorities of our activities so that we can spend less and less and less and become more and more and more efficient. Analytics has become our truth. Except, of course, it hasn't. It just hasn't. It hasn't become that truth. It all goes back to a shared understanding. Marketing simply can't be mathematically proven. The first problem we have is that different analytics tools, of course, provide different kinds of data based on different kinds of calculations, and all of that based on shared definitions of whatever we put into the calculator. For example, what really is a visit to your site or a bounce from our site? What does engaged really mean? Or what does a video view really equate in terms of value? How about an impression? The second challenge is actually even more critical, and that's the shared understanding of context of that analytic measurement. Put simply, in order for analytics to mean anything, we have to have a shared objective that is not only shared, but understood by everybody. This is something that it seems at its surface would be something we should all do just inherently. We should understand this, right? But it's actually quite rare. It's not that businesses don't have goals or objectives. They do. And it's not that most, or at least many businesses and the marketing teams that make up those businesses don't have goals or objectives. They do. But it's so rare that these marketing objectives are designed with a specific set of shared metrics that can be measured by analytics and define what success of the business looks like. Put really simply, we have a team. And we all have a goal to win the game. And we all know that means scoring more points than our opponent. But we don't have a common understanding of what a field goal means, or a touchdown, or a handoff, and therefore, nobody can agree if we've scored enough points until we've either lost or won the game. And if we lose, well, it's too late to fix it. We can't go back and replay the game. And if we somehow win, nobody knows why we won. So what's the answer? Well, as it turns out, the answer is to identify and architect our shared objectives by defining the measurements of success, and do so in a way that actually creates a crystal clear and unambiguous connection to the measurements we're taking. That's when we can design the right analytics to give us the insight we need, when math becomes meaningful. Employ the power of Semrush Trends and competitive intel. Enter your rival's website to get insights on their digital marketing, from revealing their market share and growth trends to uncovering key traffic drivers and top products and offers. Go to semrush.com/trends. That URL again is semrush.com/trends. Math. Yeah, math. Yes, it is. It's the best way to solve a math problem is with what? Yeah, a calculator, an analytics tool for marketers. They're like calculators for solving our marketing problems. But no matter how good the calculator, unless we start with a shared understanding of what problems we're solving, well, we might as well be typing 3507 into our calculator. That's right. Turn that upside down and we will lose. That's right. So anyway, that gets us to a question. How do we start thinking about measuring our goals? This is the first important pothole in businesses that they fall into and that we can avoid these days. Goals, or our objectives that we're trying to reach, they can only be set in one of two ways. They can be set for us, of course, by our boss or our board or our CEO or whoever it is. They can set a goal for us and they say, this is where I want you to go do it. Or we can set them ourselves. We can say, this is what we're trying to achieve, and we can set that objective and as a team go out and try and achieve it. The key, and as I mentioned before, this is the piece that's missing in most businesses, is a shared understanding of what those objectives are and how and what measurement will prove they've been met. That's meaningful measurement. In other words, so often what I find in marketing groups these days, and especially in content strategy and content marketing, is that we understand our objectives because we set them ourselves. Sales understands their objectives because they were set by the CEO. The business leadership, they understand their objectives because they set them themselves and some were set by the board. But no one has communicated with one another, and so what we think of as success, sales may not. Sales may have different metrics, different ideas of what success looks like, and they don't really align to what it is we're doing. As one VP of marketing said to me recently, sales is measured on the value of the opportunities that turn into customers. We are measured on the number of leads created. That sounds like a match, but it's not. We create a huge number of leads for customers looking at introductory products, and sales only values the opportunities we create for enterprise products. We're both meeting our objectives, and we're both losing for the business. In many cases, I've actually seen content groups measured on traffic, whether it be to the blog team versus the web team, the demand generation team, and the PR team, and the comms team, etc. And they're measured on traffic on landing pages or page form fills, or social teams measured on traffic and engagement on social media channels. They all have separate goals that are really thinking about the same thing, but they're weirdly competing with one another for the same eyeballs, the same attention, and different conversion rates, which doesn't do the business any good. It is absolutely critical that we make understanding an important factor. We have to understand as marketing makers that we cannot faithfully measure what is not shared as a jointly and clearly defined vision for what success looks like. Think about it this way. In a football game, there are 100 lines between the two major end zones. This one line, where you see this football sitting right now, that's the most important line of all. If we don't all share that understanding, it's just another one of the 100 lines. We might run into the end of the end zone and continue out into the parking lot when we go find the lines in the parking lot to understand what those lines mean. The key is we have to understand as a team and as an organization, what are the important lines, and more importantly, what do each of those lines represent? Goals and objectives are set, and then the plan is set to meet those objectives. All right. So if we buy into that idea and we say, great, how do we actually do this? How do we set our calculators? Well, our analytics tools need to be set in the right way so that we get the right answers to the right questions with meaning. So step one, let's get to the right objective. The first thing marketing makers need to do is to ensure that we're creating actual and shareable objectives. For example, let's say we have a white paper or an ebook or some other sort of asset that gets promoted into the market. And remember, it's not just the creation of the piece of content, and it's not just the promotion of the piece of content that determines whether it's going to be successful or not. It's also the other activities that might really help determine real value. Where did we put it? How much money did it cost? How many hours went into it? How much did we spend to promote it? Did it produce sales or only eyeballs? How well written was the piece of content? Was it designed well? A great content and marketing strategy is made up of a mix of all kinds of activities that we'd like to track to see where success really lies. Here's an example. We might see, and I see this all the time, our objective, our goal is to create a content marketing asset that increases leads by 10%. Well, that's fantastic. But there's a problem. There's a problem that without context of what that really means, it makes it really hard to understand that as a shareable objective. There's a limitation on the success. In other words, there's only one way to get there. That content marketing asset has to produce 10% more leads. If we don't promote it correctly, it may not meet that goal. That doesn't mean it couldn't have met that goal, but it means that we'll misalign the idea of why failure happened. We don't understand the score. In isolation, without context, there's a limitation on our success. So we're put into this box and we start gaming the system to try and meet that one way of getting there. The second problem is that by itself, this goal, this objective of creating a content marketing asset that increases leads by 10%, doesn't capture the real goal, which is, of course, is this thing worth scaling or doing again? That's the insight, the value we want. In other words, profitability. This metric just says create value. It doesn't do so with the added constraint of create value at a profit. In other words, I could go out and say, let's create a content marketing asset that increases leads by 10% no matter how much it costs. As I used to say to my CEO, you want more leads? I'll pour more leads all over this place. I'll make headlines that say free candy or a 50% discount or free football games on Sunday. I'll promise all kinds of things that we don't actually do. I'll pour leads all over this organization. They're going to be crappy leads, but I'll pour leads there. Great marketing makers define objectives so that there is shared business success, and we're actually working together toward the objective of that business. A well-articulated strategic objective captures a mix of how content will deliver value to the business. They also imply or overtly talk about a time horizon. When do we want to see this success happen for this objective? Now, your plan may be time-boxed by quarter, by year, by multiple years, a long-term time horizon of when we want to see a particular objective going out. You might have long-term objectives and short-term objectives, and you can figure out the hierarchy of those things. So many times when we set a strategic objective, we're doing so based on a gut feeling. We don't know. We're doing so based on what we're seeing in the marketplace or others doing. We're doing so based on an assumption. So setting those strategic objectives doesn't mean they won't ever change. It just means that we can start to time box them to understand how quickly we need to change them once we do. So now we have a shareable strategic objective. The second step is to define what will unambiguously define success of that objective. So let's define, as step 2, our key results. This is where we can get into some indication of what analytics we will need in order to determine the measurement of success. Now, one of the measurement architectures that has come from the last decade is a concept called OKRs. I'm a big fan of OKRs, and OKR stands for Objectives and Key Results. And you can start to see using OKRs how we're starting, right? An objective, we have it set. Now, key results. What makes up the definition of success? The origin of OKRs are from Andy Grove and Intel and has been adopted by a number of companies in the intervening years, like Google and Microsoft. They're big into OKRs, and we could do a whole show on OKRs. There's a ton of educational material out there on OKRs if you want to go research this. And I'd highly encourage you all, marketing makers, to go do that. They're a fantastic way to get to measurement that matters, our shared progress toward a destination. So the way I look at OKRs is, I don't know if it's different or not, but what I like to do is architect it in a very specific way. The way I look at OKRs and the way that we work with our clients on such is we start with, all right, let's establish our OKRs the way they're classically constructed, right? So as we just talked about, our objectives is something we want to achieve and we're looking for key results. It's part of or simply one of an objective within a whole bunch of objectives, I'm sure, that make up our strategic mission, our strategic marketing mission, or our business strategy. So let's make one up, a strategic mission objective, right? So how about this? Our objective is to drive a 25% net new sales increase into our product in the next year. Fantastic. That's a strategic business level mission that we should all understand. We understand it. Now, let's make a shareable objective for our content marketing team within that strategic mission. Let's say this content marketing program is going to provide 10% of all the net new sales opportunities in the next year. That's shareable. It's part of our strategic mission, and we understand the context of where it lies in the strategic mission. And it's well said, right? But we need to define it. What does success look like? So maybe there are 3 key results here. The first one, increase new leads by content by 15%. Fantastic. You'll remember that was one of the first ones we just talked about a few minutes ago on the show. This is a key result, not a strategic objective, because increasing new leads by content by itself is a fantastic key result to moving toward our objective of getting to become 10% of all the new opportunities within the strategic objective of increasing things by 25%. But there's one additional key result we want to put in here. Increase conversion rates of free trials by 25%. In other words, not only increase the new leads we're putting into the top of the funnel, but also increase the effectiveness, the quality of those opportunities. You see what we're doing there? We're increasing the conversion rate of the landing page of the things that we're doing from those free trials so that we get more of them converted into actual sales. So increasing the profitability there. And then the third key result, and this one might seem weird at its face, right? Because this third one, if you're watching the video, you go, wait a minute, how does driving 25% new growth in sales or becoming 10% of all the sales opportunities, what does that have to do with savings on advertising costs? The key result is decrease CPM, our cost per thousand rates on advertising by 20%. Remember, this is what we're going to be doing with our content marketing. So why? Why this key result? Well, because we'd like to spend more money doing number 1 and number 2. We'd like to spend more money increasing the leads and increasing the conversions on those landing pages. And if we spend less money on advertising, we can spend more money on 1 and 2 without actually incurring more cost. So what does that equal? Profitability and success. So you can start to see how the analytics we need gets defined. Now we're setting a goal and an objective that has a direct effect on profit over cost. This is the key. And that, step 2, and brings us to step 3. Step 3 is now we can start designing our analytics measurements needs, the statistics, the math that we need. So in episode 4 of Marketing Makers, and go back and look it up, it's a pretty good show. We talked about this measurement pyramid idea that we utilize. As you design analytics and measurements needs, you can use a measurement pyramid which understand which analytics you need to help you determine whether you've calculated all the demonstrable or key results in our OKR. Because guess what? With some exceptions, there's probably not one tool that's going to combine elegantly and definitively tell you whether you have not or met your key results. Remember, these key results are made up of a number of activities. You're just boxing it in with 3 things that, if met, will define success for your overall objective. Think of it this way. If we're a football team, right? Our strategic mission, get to the playoffs this year. That's something we all understand as a team. It is our strategic mission. One of our strategic team objectives in that strategic mission is maintain an average scoring of at least 30 points per game for the regular season. That's a strategic objective that we're trying to reach that fits within our strategic mission. Then the key results. 1, the quarterback maintains a rating of above 90. The starting offensive line, number 2, stays fresh, healthy, and available all year long. 3, turnovers must be low, average of 1 per game. So you can see, QB rating, quarterback rating, is a combination of statistical metrics that should be examined in context to ensure we're not overcounting or undercounting information. Making sure the offensive line stays healthy is both observational and, of course, subjective. But can be bolstered by metrics of available playing time, performance, etc. And turnovers is just a unique combination of metrics for the whole team. In other words, there's not just one calculator or analytics tool that will work to tell us whether we've met key results. It's a combination of things. So let's start our measurement pyramid. We need to identify all of those metrics to ramp up into those key results. The measurement pyramid takes in our OKR for whatever number of strategic goals or objectives or mission we have, and then gives us 2 tiers that we can start to use analytics. The first is that mid-tier, which we'll call KPIs, key performance indicators. These are the things that inform our progress toward the goals, the key results that we're trying to reach. These are usually going to be dashboards that combine various metrics into a score that we can utilize. Think of the combining metrics into our quarterback rating. The metrics that make up that quarterback rating are a combination that turn into a KPI of a quarterback rating that we can, of course, track. And then underneath the KPIs, we have a litany of data and metrics that we can use to help us improve our process toward reaching those key performance indicators. And that, of course, helps us reach our goals. Let me put this into an example for you, and one we just talked about. So here, we might have metrics that say, we're going to look at when we're going to start increasing leads and increasing conversions and decreasing our cost per thousand, right? Remember our 3 key results there. And we're going to look at internal content consumption from peer groups using our content collaboration tool to give us that analytics metric. We're also going to look at agencies that needed to fulfill the cost of content using our procurement team budget to get that analytics number. We're going to look at the number of campaigns that we create using this content, using our DAM, our digital asset management system, and for that analytics number. We're going to look at the number of conversions from free trials using our marketing automation analytics for that number. We're going to look at new leads for all the content driving into that traffic, so we'll see the SEO benefits and our SEO analytics tool for those numbers. All those metrics will help us understand the second layer, which is how are we progressing toward our KPIs, which we can manage and balance and look at and guide toward our getting to our key results. The number of content pieces produced in this quarter, the number of individuals pieces, the cost of paid and organic traffic, the cost of conversions from other channels, all of these in context help us reach our goals. Our 3 goals, our key results for this OKR of increasing new leads, increasing conversions from free trials, and decreasing our cost per thousand in advertising. This is the measurement pyramid that helps us deliver the OKR for that strategic mission. Everything is shared. Everyone agrees that these metrics helped us improve our process to meet these KPIs, which demonstrate that we have unambiguously met these 3 key results, which means the objective has been met and we've won the game. Everything is understood out there. We can all now do our touchdown dance. The game has been won and we know why. So what does it all look like when it's designed? Well, it looks a bit like this, an org chart, where you can start to see the overall business mission segmented into the strategic objectives. Each of those segmented into OKR pyramids with a source tool for each that go the metrics into it. Now we're measuring what's meaningful and what's important, not just anything we can or only the things going up and to the right. And we're using math. We're using math and doing the math for the analytics we need to get there. And well, that's what we're really after, isn't it? I mean, if you're like me, the math is the least exciting part, so let's make it as streamlined and efficient, quite frankly, as possible. In today's world, it is literally too easy to become buried in analytics, data, and metrics. We have so much math at our fingertips and so little problem-solving insight. But many times, businesses use this tsunami of data at our fingertips to tell themselves a story. The story that we want to tell instead of the story that we really need to hear. I can tell you the one we need to hear is the one that makes us better. There's a wonderful quote about planning your life that says, create a life so good that you don't need a vacation from it. And so I think the same is true for data, measurement, and analytics. If we take the time and the care, we can create an analytics and measurement strategy so good that we marketers don't have to do the math. Until I see you next month, it's your story to tell. Tell it well.